Hey, so first things first, I did my little rant about my nightmare Rolex boutique experience and I put it out to the world on YouTube. And I am actually, probably naively, which seems to be the word of the moment for me, but I can't believe the response I had. And so I thought I'd follow up with a little discussion, and it's not so much a rant, it's just more observations, my point of view, and nothing else. And I am absolutely happy to have you disagree with me, comment, all that stuff, because I've really enjoyed the discussion that we've had below the video. But the thing that really got me was this, and I just want to give you some more context and clarify the visit. So, I love watches, and you're going to learn that I love watches. It's obvious. I started a channel about them. So, of course, I fucking love watches. But I actually don't know that much about any of it, in the sense of I've just been buying watches over the years that caught my eye and that I could afford. And as I've been able to afford nicer, more expensive watches, I've stuck to the stuff that I've kind of just had on my list, not really knowing what a collector should do to start their collection. I'm going to do a video on that now that I'm learning, because maybe I would have changed, but maybe not. Like, maybe I did it the right way. Maybe I've just picked the watches that mean something to me. So that's where the naivety of Rolex comes into it for me, because I've never really looked at that watch until recently, because I thought I just could never have afforded a Rolex, because to me, for all the marketing and the branding, whatever you want to call it, I just always thought a Rolex was unattainable from a price point perspective. I didn't realize that they were priced, if you can get them obviously, at a retail that could be even less than this watch. So setting that aside, or understanding that context with me, the next step, going shopping, going to a boutique. The Rolex store I talked about was the second Rolex store ever that I'd walked into. The first one being in Melbourne that I went to a couple of months ago, about a month earlier than the rant. And it was a completely different experience. I walked in, I did not have an appointment. Someone managed to be available, and the planets aligned, right? I met a lovely lady, an AD, who saw what watch I had on my wrist. We started talking about watches, and then she understood that I just genuinely love them. So we had a whole conversation for an hour about watches, interchanged with her bringing out exhibition pieces for me to try on, just so I could get to understand the brand. And at the end of that, she was the one to say, "You love a diver's watch," the sub. And she was more than happy to put me on a list for that, explaining very clearly the situation. A, you can't walk into a store and buy one. B, we put you on a list. We get sent watches every month or quarter or whatever it was. We don't know what we're going to get. And then we allocate accordingly based off that. And I was like, well, gee, that's weird. But if that's the process, then that's fine. Like, it is what it is, right? So I left that. I went back to Sydney. I've explained it to you guys. I got set up with an appointment through a contact I knew. Some people have commented, was I looking for special treatment? Maybe, but it wasn't so much that I expected to walk in that day and just get a watch. I just expected, by special treatment, you need to understand this. When I've walked into upscale stores, or even to buy a Toyota or a Ford, there have been a number of occasions in my life where I don't even get anyone greeting me at the door. Because, I mean, let's face it, I look 12. I rock up with a cap or something. Like, people don't take me seriously. So when I say special treatment, it was more that I was just expecting an appointment where someone would greet me and we'd have a conversation. So I don't think that's special treatment. I just think that's decent customer service. So that's sort of a little bit more of the context. To clarify, the watches that were presented to me by that boutique were not available for me to buy that day. They were exhibition pieces, and it was made very clear to me that if I liked them, that it would be so much easier for them to try and get them for me. So it wasn't guaranteed that I would be able to get them. To also further clarify, they are beautiful watches, guys. There are lots of Rolex watches that I love. The point is, which ones am I willing to part with my hard-earned cash for? And they are the three, or the couple that I've described. So the Submariner, the Pepsi, or the Batman, or the /Batgirl, depending on what bracelet we're talking about there. Those ones I would consider parting with my hard-earned cash first. Maybe down the track, I'd want to get one of those other watches, not the other way around. That is all. That's my opinion. That's kind of where I'm coming from. I am also so surprised in the comments by how conditioned we've all become to this whole process and the treatment of the brand. I've had people commenting that they've bought many a watch that wasn't really their first choice. And again, power to you. We are able to make our own decisions in this world. I'm just simply saying I wouldn't do that. In fact, query in doing so and buying all those watches and expending all that money just to get the chance to be able to go on a list to get the watch you want, you're probably better off buying that on the grey market, right? And you're probably going to save $1 or $2. Like, it's so bizarre to me. But anywho, yeah, I just like the whole concept of people telling me they haven't been served or they can't get in the door, or they haven't even been able to try on watches. It's not an AD problem. That's a Rolex problem. Like, that's a brand problem, but it's a problem that they've created, and they've obviously created that for good reason. Now, is that going to withstand the test of time with the downturn in the economy, recessions? I mean, who fucking knows? I don't know. Like, maybe it will, but I guess at some point they'll just stop the gravy train for whatever time that recession lasts, and swings and roundabouts, people. We live in a circular or cyclical environment with economics. But I just feel that, like, the conditioning we've had with this whole process is really odd. Like, we are the customer. Okay? Number one, we don't always have to be right. That can be bullshit because a customer can most certainly be wrong. But we should be able to be treated with some level of respect. Not be patronized. Just be honest with me. Don't even take my appointment, I guess, if you can't help me, or if you don't want to spend a half an hour or an hour just talking about watches, but the ones I want to see, and then tell me that you can't get them for me, or tell me that you go on a list, but you could be waiting like 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't know how long on the list. I mean, it's annoying, but I respect that a lot more than being patronized. Don't tell me a Rolex isn't for me just because I don't want to buy the ones that you present to me when there's a whole catalogue of others that I actually want to buy. No. Rolex is for me. Just like Panerai for me, Omega's for me. Any brand I want that I can afford of a watch that I like is for me. Whether I can get it, sure, totally different story. But don't tell me the brand isn't for me because I want a watch that's unattainable. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about a steel watch. We're not even talking about a watch that has precious metals. It's so funny to me. And we've all gotten wrapped up in this process. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to buy a Rolex. If the opportunity presented and a watch that I wanted came up, yeah, of course I'm going to buy it. So maybe I'm a hypocrite, maybe I'm not. But at least I'm a little bit realistic, and I love you guys for telling me your stories. I love the fact that we all have a different take on it, and we're happy to do different things in relation to this. Privileged? I don't know. I mean, I've worked really hard. I'm sure you have too. We buy watches because we love them, and that's what brings us joy. And we buy what we can afford. And I can't afford to buy watches that don't particularly bring me joy in order to be able to buy a watch that does bring me joy. I hope that makes sense. I thank you again for watching. Sorry, it probably did turn into a bit of a rant. But yeah, I mean, I kind of love it. I love that we're all passionate about it. And yeah, this brand invokes so much feeling about them and their process in us. And some of us are very, very shell-shocked or have had the most horrendous experience. And I respect people who have said Rolex isn't for me because of that. I respect that. Not Rolex isn't for me because you don't want the brands that we're peddling, or the models we're peddling. That's bullshit. That was my annoyance with that guy. If I had gone to the store and tried on all the watches, including the Saab, and they were like, and then they said, maybe Rolex isn't for you, I'd be like, yeah, actually, I think you're right. because that is true. Not the other way around. Anyway, end rant. Thank you for watching. Comment below as always. Please come back. And thanks very much, guys.